Why sometimes I've believed as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. That's a quote from the Queen in Lewis Carroll's book, Through the Looking Glass. I listen to that and I wonder, how is it, or how does it make you feel that the difference between possible and impossible is your willingness to step into chaos? Impossible is just a compounding of smaller possibles. Impossible is a refusal to say no. Impossible is moving forward through those checkpoints in life where most people look around and simply say, I don't want to pay the metaphorical price. I don't want to give what's required here. I really enjoy history. Lately, I've been revisiting a lot of sort of various battles from recent all the way to way back. From Alexander the Great's conquest of Tyre to George Washington and the American colonists against the British. Even the famous Battle of Thermopylae with the 300 Spartans that we all know about. All of these have, in their own unique way, defied the odds. And what strikes me is, if you look at any of these scenarios on paper, they all appear to be suicide missions. It's crazy. The 300 at Thermopylae obviously being close to that, and I'll touch on that in a second, but all very special in their own unique way. All took an apparent impossible task and did something pretty remarkable with it. See, when you immerse yourself into something, even something seemingly impossible, without the prospect of turning around in your head, there's a shift in your mind. You have to find a way forward because forward is the only way, and so you do. You look at the landscape differently. You look at the resources accessible to you differently. Funny enough, there always seems to be something to solve the problem, some dot that can be connected, some loophole, some advantage, some tactic that can move you maybe not directly to the finish line, but just far enough to adapt and survive. Some path to triumph that, when looked at as a whole, gets lost amidst the daunting nature of the task. It's like leaping a mountain is impossible, but climbing one rock at a time is very doable. And it's that, right? Again and again and again, that gives you just enough life to cross the abyss. So back to those examples, right? You take Alexander the Great. It was the courage and ingenuity to literally construct a causeway from land out into the water to the tiny island city-state of Tyre, simultaneously using his navy to cut off supply lines and breaching the wall that surrounded the city. On paper, that's an impossible, just unthinkable feat. For Washington, it was surviving winter, a superior army. It was finding a way to manufacture some key battles that, were enough to convince the French to come in and support the cause. One day at a time. Again, the greatest military force on Earth at the time. A seemingly impossible, insurmountable obstacle. At Thermopylae was using the landscape and superior skill to their advantage, holding their ground and making a substantial dent in the Persian army. Again, one of the most powerful armies on Earth at the time, all the way until it was the last of the 300 men. completely turning the numbers game upside down. Impossible is looking at the size and scope of a task, not the little actions required to bring it to life, right? And that's generally a rule, right? When you operate under the premise or the notion that there is a solution, you find one, right? And I can give you the example of YouTube, as I usually do, because it's obviously near and dear to my heart and something that's changed my life, right? A platform of this size and scale 10 years ago is unthinkable, impossible, laughable, right? My brain didn't even go there. It's impossible for someone who left their day job, running out of money in a small apartment in Boston, to create that, right? But when the door is not cracked, when it's shut firmly behind you, there's no escape plan, when it's I am going forward and that is the only direction I'm going, everything around you becomes an instrument in the symphony that will be your growth. You find a way. It's like, why do people talk about rock bottom being what turned them around? Because in that moment, they had to start using what was around them to win. There was no off-ramp. They had to see the utility in what existed around them. The hours I used to waste became more precious. Every dollar, how can I stretch it into something that matters? Right? Boston is a major city. I started asking, who can I connect with and learn from? Even Microsoft Word went from being something I, had to reluctantly open once in a while for an office job to this portal where I could share my thoughts with the world. We don't see life as it is, we see life as we are. And when you're only focused on one goal, you become this vehicle through which magic happens. When I was a kid, like way back, right, 90s, computers first became sort of household items. I used to play this Star Wars game. It's just a demo. And I love this metaphor because I, was on level 1, wandering around, frustrated, trying to find this door that would bring me to level 2, and I could not find it. And I looked and I looked and I looked, and I would spend hours and hours. And, I didn't know about cheat codes or how to research any of that stuff. It's just exploring. And this is anticlimactic, but eventually there was a day where I found it, this camouflage door in the back. And I went through it and it brought me to level 2. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I believe that door exists for all endeavors. It's always there, right? Sometimes buried underneath layers of trial and error, sometimes behind miles and miles of road, sometimes hidden in plain sight. And so we need to remember, impossible does not mean cannot be done. Impossible just asks, how long are you willing to look? How long are you willing to scratch, claw, and fight for that result you're looking for? The pursuit does not end until you do, which not only completely debunks impossible, it shows you just how powerful you are. All things are possible if you are willing to bring them to life.